Joining us now, Jason Johnson, politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University in the great city of Baltimore. He's also an MSNBC political contributor. And Tara Palmieri, senior political correspondent at Puck News and host of the Somebody Gotta Win podcast. I like that name. Yeah.
Somebody's got to win.
Somebody's got to win.
We don't know who right now.
Who won tonight?
The lollipop has made an appearance, Jason.
The lollipop actually
What did you make of the candidates' responses on gun violence?
I wasn't impressed with J.D. Vance's answer, but I didn't expect a good answer. I mean, his answer is like, build a better wall, build stronger windows. These are not answers when it comes to kids being shot at and children being frightened in schools and adults being frightened in schools. But I didn't expect that, right? I didn't expect any of that. I expected J.D. Vance to do what he did, which is he started with, I'm trying to redefine myself. I'm not the couch guy. I'm not the cat lady guy. That's his whole point, right? And he seems to have, in Instapolls, moved from being Hitler to Idi Amin, right? I mean, like, he's still unpopular. People still don't like the guy, but he's improved in some vague way, one way or another. But objectively, he is a better debater than Tim Walz. But as far as presenting yourself and defending the top of the ticket, he failed. Like that's the thing. J.D. Vance looks better. Donald Trump doesn't look any better after this debate than he did the first time. And your goal as the vice presidential pick is to make your boss look better. And that's where I think Tim Walz is more successful.
I actually think he succeeded because he actually communicated a policy for Trump, and Trump could not communicate a policy at all in the first debate. And he attacked Kamala Harris, which is something that Donald Trump couldn't really do, and defined her in a way that Trump couldn't, because Trump was so obsessed with defending himself, and he got in the tit for tat. And even tonight, I had heard from my Trump sources in advance that, like, Trump wanted JD to defend him, even though they knew that was a waste of time, because what they wanted to spend their time on was defining Kamala Harris, because there are some voters out there, believe it or not, who are still want more information about her. They still think there's ambiguity around her. And so that's the opening. Use your time to pivot away and go after Kamala Harris. And that's why you didn't hear him going after, Tim Walz over stolen valor, or even really following up on the Tiananmen Square stuff. He kind of just let it all pass and was like, pivot, immigration, inflation, economy, Kamala Harris. And it was the same on the other side, too. I mean, they both did. I think they did a decent job for their bosses, in my opinion, if the job was to attack the other person's boss.
What I find interesting, though, is that there is some of J.D. Vance that can't help but be J.D. Vance, right? So if your point was that they went and they were like, just ditch, nothing on the couch, nothing on the cat ladies. Sure, he hit that mark. But in this exchange, I want to play it. This is both Walz and Vance on child care. There were some subtleties that snuck in there. Take a listen.
I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state.
I'm married to a beautiful woman who's an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator, and I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families, and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach.
You know, it's interesting. It's almost like he doesn't have children that he's...
Yeah, she has these beautiful children. She needs to figure out how she can go to work.
It's a subtlety, and I get what he was trying to do, which is he knows that he has...
He's wearing pink, okay?
Right. The tie was
J.D. Vance is every terrible, evil ex-husband who gaslights you in divorce court. Like, that's not who he is, right? Like, anyone who's listened to J.D. Vance and his sort of MAGA Bro podcast nonsense for the last several months since he's VP, you know this isn't what he believes. You know he wants women at home. You know that's the whole switch that he's made. So when he gets there and tries to say, I'm this progressive guy and I care about women and blah, 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 my mother was on OxyContin and then she this, that, and the other, it's nonsense. And anyone, this is a big thing about these debates. Partisans watch debates, voters watch clips. Okay? Voters are going to see that clip and they're like, this doesn't sound like the guy who I've heard for the last 8 months, and I don't believe him, right? Or last 4 or 5 months, I don't believe him. Partisans, of course, are going to be angry because they're like, oh my gosh, why didn't Tim Walz suplex him and do a WWC? Because Tim Walz didn't have to do that tonight. It was just a matter of saying, hey, my boss is great. And Michael, you pointed this out earlier, and it was the same thing I noticed. I think he was trying to make space between J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. You know, because I think if Tim Walz had come out there breathing fire, then J.D. Vance, the gas side, would have been like, I don't, this guy seems crazy to me. I'm not as weird.
But is there not a happy medium between literally breathing fire and like baking cookies?
Only if we're a good debater, and Tim Walz is not a good debater.
But he helped J.D. Vance with his favorabilities. Tim Walz helped J.D. Vance. He agreed with him a lot. He recognized him. He said, I agree with you on so many points. And he allowed him to not come off like a smartass. We thought the whole time that he was going to be like, this is some like educated Yale kid. I'm more like you. I'm folksy. I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. You know, and instead, you know, JD worked at like investment firms. He worked for Peter Thiel. He didn't bring up any of his background. And you see the snap polls that show that JD Vance's approvals went up. He's still below, 3 points below, but he was 22 points below, you know? And so, but at the same time, Tim Walz's approval ratings went up. But does that even matter in the end? I'm not really sure.
We don't know. We don't know.
Look, if you lose the football game by a field goal or 7 points, you still lost, right? He's still underwater. So I don't see that as ultimately being successful. And I think, again, the clips. You watch the entire debate, and Tim Walz is not as good a debater as J.D. Vance, right? I went to school with guys like J.D. Vance. I know that type. They do Jeff Society thing. They've been debating since they were 9, right? Like, I knew he was going to be a better debater. But the clips, his answers in the clips in isolation don't look good. The answers about abortion don't look good. The answers about, the economy don't look good. The clip that we just played, they don't look good in isolation.
And so one of the reasons I think they don't look good, because I wrote this down, lies, damn lies. This is what I was. So J.D. Vance talked a good game, but he lied about American energy production because it's up, not down. He talks a good game about Obamacare, but he lied. Donald Trump was not trying to protect Obamacare. He wants to repeal and replace it. And by the way, folks, there is no plan. There is no plan B, and all y'all, 27 million plus, will have no health care come 2025 if Donald Trump is your president. He lied about the peaceful transfer of power. Hello? Yes, he lied about that. And he lied about not supporting a national ban on abortion. And on this point, I stand firm ground because I've been in the room with a lot of these folks, right? And I know where they are on this issue. The bottom line is that is the end game. That is the end game. It has been from day one. And so I know that as someone who's part of that pro-life community. I know it. That's the end game. So when he stands on this stage and pretends, I never want to do a national abortion, he lying to you. So to your point, Dr. Johnson, I think that's where that number goes back down for him. So he got that that bump where he got 20%. He went from minus 22 to 3 or minus 23 to
minus 22 to minus 3.
So now he could be back in minus 10 because when the clips start coming out and people go, well, you lied to us about abortion. You lied to us about Obamacare. You lied to us about energy production. When are you going to tell us the truth?
And you can see it in his own words. Can we play back to back what he said tonight and what he said back in 2022?
First of all, I never supported a national ban.
I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally.
Okay.
Like, I'm not an ad maker.
So that's where I said, okay, does not support a national ban. He lying to you. Good point.
And this is where the following day, the coverage, the socials, the clips, the ads, this is when having more money matters. And Kamala Harris has 3 times more cash than Trump campaign. The question is, are they going to spend it on JD? You know,
maybe, but they'll spend it on the issue.
They'll spend it on the issue.
And Trump has been all over the map, by the way, on abortion, although he felt the need to weigh in on Truth Social tonight and say he does not support a national ban. He was not willing to do that.
He's lying.
At his own debate, right? He could not articulate. He was worse than Tim Walz on Tiananmen Square on abortion. And yeah, so this is obviously an issue that's dogged them.
So can I just sort of a real quick thing on the national ban thing? So those of you who served in government understand what this process, what Donald Trump is saying, and what J.D. Vance are saying, trying to be slick by half. So when Donald Trump says, "I will not sign a national abortion ban," he probably won't. You know why? Because he'll let it become law without his signature.
The policies. I mean, it's happening in places all over the country right now.
So he's not. So technically, I'm not lying, but you know, he can save face. The Congress will do what the Congress will do. They'll send him the bill, and he won't sign it, and it'll become law without his signature. So that's.
And J.D. Vance is basically acknowledging what you're talking about. Nobody believes them because that's why Vance had to start with, "I know we've been kind of bad on this issue. It was very third world dictator. Re-elect me so you can hold me accountable." Wait, that's not how this works, right? Like at the end of the day, the reason you have to explain to everybody why they don't trust you is because they don't trust you for a reason.
Right.
And that's not going to work. You have 40 days. You're not going to convince people that you're open-minded on abortion. And Tim Walz, in one of the few linguistically adroit things he did tonight, because he didn't do it a lot, was he's like, when J.D. Vance was like, "Well, we want to move it to the states," he's like, "No, then you have situations like what happened in Georgia. You can't have this go state by state." That was one of his most substantive answers because it was an example that he could actually give. And when they were talking about abortion and the difficulties, I'm sorry, this is the political scientist in me coming out. You have to give names.
Yeah,
J.D. Vance couldn't come up with a name of this friend of his.
And I know she's watching.
And I know she's watching. Then what's her name, buddy?
Then what's her name?
What's your friend's name?
Because we'd like to talk to her.
Yeah.
We want to get her opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you like to talk to her.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
friend. Well, to all my friends watching, thank you, Jason.